Hellcat.
Hello and welcome back to the channel where we are once again taking another look at a Sega Saturn game. You'll have to forgive me if I don't quite sound 100%. I've got an ear infection in my left ear and it's pretty painful. So last week we took a look at Sega Rally, which most people regard as one of, if not the best racing game on the Saturn. So I thought this week we would have to take a look at another racing game to sort of like directly compare them. And this racing game is held in a special regard, all on its own, I think, on the Saturn. It's everything that Sega Rally isn't, really, if that makes sense. And this game is hardcore 4x4. It certainly is hardcore. Yeah, let's go and take a look then at hardcore 4x4. So yeah, once hardcore 4x4 loads up and the intro video loads, you could actually be mistaken for thinking that this is going to be a pretty good game. Now, in the intro video, there's only one truck going around the track. As such, the frame rate isn't too bad. It looks okay. It actually looks relatively smooth. Yes, there's a bit of pop up and pop out, but the draw distance in the game isn't actually too bad either. Now, you see the truck flying around. It doesn't look like there's any slowdown. It's using the in-game graphics engine, just like Sega Rally did. When I did the review for that last week, I commented on that, and you could once again think that hardcore 4x4 is going to actually be a pretty good game. But yeah, it's all downhill from there, I'm afraid. And once we load back onto the main menu, and there is quite a bit of loading on this game, it's actually pretty frustrating, if I'm honest. Nothing like Sega Rally, which sort of loads instantly. Hardcore 4x4 has loading screens left, right and center. But we get onto the main menu. Pretty basic, not going to lie, nothing special about that. Going down into the options, then we can standard stuff really. We can change the sound effects, the music, the commentary, if you even want to call it commentary, steering sensitivity, which I'd suggest is a waste of time. You can choose whether you want to save it on the system or the cartridge. You can alter the controls. I alter the controls so accelerate with B. Pretty standard stuff before we go onto the main game mode. Now obviously this is pretty confusing, but each one changes the settings. So if we go on the steering wheel, we can choose between time trial, single race and championship. When we go down to the car selection screen, there is 7 cars. There's the Bushmaster, the Dirt Devil, the Icebreaker, the Sidewinder, the Brimstone, the Rockhopper and the Mother, which is the best truck. We can choose between automatic and manual transmission, pretty standard. And then we've actually got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 courses to play on. So for this game, 6 courses, not bad. It came out right at the end of 1996, by the way, so you can only choose novice at the start, and you'll probably only ever be able to choose novice because the likelihood of you ever winning a championship to make it more difficult, not likely. You can choose the weather effects. Already you're probably getting an idea that I'm pretty negative towards this game, but the weather effects, yeah, they just make the game worse to run. So I would bear that in mind. So once you've got past another loading screen, after that you will be dropped into the game.
Watch the hills, they really drag the power out.
Yeah, you are met with sort of chuggo vision straight away. I don't know what the frame rate is there, but that was rough. You see glitching straight away, and all of a sudden you're thinking, oh my word. And then once you start playing the game, you realise that the frame rate with all the other trucks on the track is pretty much crippling. It hampers the gameplay so much, it's really hard to put it into words, but the game itself, I feel like if you took still shots from it, it doesn't look too bad. The trucks don't look too bad. The tracks, in my opinion, look okay for the time, but for whatever reason, the game engine is horrific. And one thing it does do is it makes the controls so bad that your truck is continually turning around by itself, and it's so difficult to control. You genuinely feel like because the engine is so bad, you don't actually have actual control of your truck half the time. It is so poor, the performance of this game. Crossing the bridges and stuff, it's practically impossible. I mean, it is really hard to put into words how this game can come out 1 year after Sega Rally and look worse and perform so poorly in comparison to Sega Rally. Now, Sega Rally obviously has more cars on the track, not necessarily on the screen, but there are more cars in each race, and it just feels like there's more going on in Sega Rally. And I feel bad comparing it to Sega Rally, but you have to, really. You have to compare it against, you know, pretty much the best racing games on the system. And, you know, hardcore 4x4 in terms of its looks and performance is just shocking. Now, if you go on races with different weather effects, this just cripples the performance even more. And there's one particular course with sandstorms on. That course is practically unplayable. I played it in the championship mode, and with those weather effects going on, you just have no chance of winning the races. I would say it's physically impossible. It genuinely is. And I was using the mother truck, the one with all the best stats. This is the one I'm using in the video here, and it is so hard to summarize how badly the performance of the engine affects all aspects of the game. It just really is. And I'd love to meet the person that A-okayed this game for release and said, yes, this game's fine, let's release it in this condition, because, you know, they need to shoot it. Pretty much, unless they were blind and they couldn't see the performance of the game, you know, there really isn't anything else to say on the way that this game looks, I'm afraid. And because of the way the game looks and performs with the engine, it makes gameplay horrific. Literally horrific. I played the first few races when I was reviewing the game and practicing before, because I did play it beforehand a fair bit, just to try and suss out if I could actually win a race, which I couldn't. But the gameplay is so lag-filled, so unresponsive, that you don't feel like you're in control of your truck. You feel like it is completely out of control most of the time. It seems to turn around by itself. It keeps going when you're not actually holding the accelerator. It is just, it is painful to play. It really, really is. Now, one thing I did find out is when you change the viewpoint to inside the car, so you actually see the driver's hands on the steering wheel, you don't seem to spin out. The game is actually better to play like that, and that's probably because you don't have all the other cars bouncing around you. You don't actually see the graphics of your truck, so it's easier for the engine to run. But there's a major problem with this. Because your truck is bouncing around the track out of control most of the time, the viewpoint from inside the car is absolutely diabolical, because you can't tell which corners are coming or anything. So even though the game runs and performs better in that viewpoint, it's actually just as unplayable, because you really still don't have any idea where you're going. So it's sort of like a lose-lose situation. Whichever viewpoint you choose, I feel like there's no winning in this game. It doesn't have any redeeming features in terms of the way it looks and the way it plays. So moving on, talking about how the game sounds. Well, the music for the races is actually fitting. It's nothing memorable, but it probably is the highlight of the game, because the tunes and the tracks, I genuinely feel, fit the courses. Are sort of like just rock music, just generic rock music, but it fits the way that your truck is flying and bouncing around the tracks, going upside down half the time, just completely out of control. The music probably is the one minor plus point about this game. Now, the commentary, if you want to call it commentary, is very, very shallow. You'll probably only hear a few comments throughout the race, and usually it's hardcore and telling you you'll lose some speed up a hill or something. He mumbles, and he usually says something different at the start of a race, but that is pretty much the extent of the commentary, if you want to call it commentary. I mean, it's really, really shallow, and there is not a whole lot to that. In terms of the sound effects, yeah, I haven't got any complaints about the way it sounds with your truck battering around and stuff like that. It actually sounds okay, if I'm perfectly honest.
Go for it.
Obviously, next we need to talk about the lifespan that this game could provide for you. Now, CX price is £8, so you can easily get £8 worth of gameplay out of it if you chose to, with the championship time trial and the single race option, coupled with having 7 cars and 6 tracks. There's actually a reasonable amount of content in the game, but there are some problems with that. I've played with different cars, and every car feels as bad as the other. You cannot distinguish each car from one another because of the terrible gameplay, so it wipes out the fact that there's 7 cars in the game. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter, because each car is just as bad as the other and will give you just as poor results. Now, 6 tracks sounds promising as well, but your car is as uncontrollable on each track as the other, even in particular the ice one, where your car slides across the ice. It just makes it even more uncontrollable. So the fact there are 6 tracks doesn't really matter, because whilst they might look slightly different in places, they are all as unplayable and as unenjoyable as each one. And obviously, with any racing game, a crippling problem is if it doesn't have any kind of multiplayer, and hardcore 4x4 is 1 player only, and that's probably a good thing, because if you bought this game upon release and tried to encourage your friend to come around and play your Sega Saturn with you, he'd probably never want to play with you ever again. He probably wouldn't be your friend anymore, and you would live the rest of your life alone with no friends whatsoever, because hardcore 4x4 would not be a game that you want to show to your friends in any way, shape or form. It would give them the opinion that the Sega Saturn is absolutely a terrible machine, incapable of running 3D games to any sort of successful level. So all in all, whilst there is content, the fact is you're not going to want to play through that content to give this game a good lifespan. Yeah, that was hardcore 4x4. Now, usually I don't want to be overly negative on a game when I'm talking about it, but this game doesn't have many redeeming features, if any at all. I think I summarized everything that I felt about this game during the video, so I'm not really going to say anymore. If you've played hardcore 4x4, if you actually think hardcore 4x4 is a good game, let me know, because I don't. No, definitely not anywhere near Sega Rally's quality. Crazy when you think it came out basically a year later as well. But that is, and that was, hardcore 4x4. What do you think about that? Let me know, and I will see you soon for the next Saturn review. Goodbye for now.